documents. We've got 168, there were 167, but another one's been found a year ago, 168 copies of the Brutes of England, the manuscript, handwritten. And they say Uther Pendragon is buried at Caer Caradoc. It can't be the Uther Pendragon Tudrig, he's at Mathen. It can't be Meurig, he's in Llandaff. And it's towards the end of the 6th century. So, to us it's logical this is probably, and has to be, the Uther Pendragon Arthur. Similar information of an Uther Pendragon buried in the Giant Circle at Caer Caradoc exists in Matthew of Westminster. It's supplemented and it's reinforced by evidence in the Brut of Tysilio, in the Brut of Griffith ap Arthur, and in several Dark Age 6th century poems in Wales. So we've got a massive evidence about this. What we're trying to say is, who is the Uther Pendragon? It clearly has to be Arthur. One of the problems has been is, how do you identify Caer Caradoc? Nobody appears to have bothered to find out. It hasn't been the subject of any research. The medieval said, well, there's a great circle at Caer Caradoc. Stonehenge is a great circle, that'll do, or Avebury. Well, Stonehenge is not the place, neither is Avebury. Caer means castle, the castle of Caradoc. Now we've got in Mid Glamorgan a big fortress mountain. It's called Fortress Mountain, Montegain, and on it we have some strange things. We've got St. Peter's Church in ruin. The thing about St. Peter's Church is that it appears in the ancient Welsh histories as a place where Merddin Emrys meets the ambassadors of Vortigern at Caer Caradoc. We've got another thing about this. We have Mynwent y Milwyr on this long mountain. Now Mynwent y Milwyr was built by Emrys Wering around 470. He buried all the 363 major British nobles killed in the massacre with the Saxons at the peace conference. And he buried them in a giant circular monument known as the Grave Monuments of the Soldiers, Mynwent y Milwyr. It's still on the map. And it's said to be at Caer Caradoc. So we've got St. Peter's Church at Caer Caradoc, and we've got Mynwent y Milwyr at Caer Caradoc. The highest part of this mountain, there's a grave mound still named Twyn Caradoc, the grave mound of Caradoc. That's what it says. Close to St. Peter's Church and close to the ruins of ancient towers and walls of a castle, a Caer, there is a giant ditch and mound, bolt-shaped circle, let's call it, in the ground. So we have a giant circle at Caer Caradoc. We've got St. Peter's Church at Caer Caradoc. We've got the Mynwent y Milwyr at Caer Caradoc. And we've got Twyn Caradoc at Caer Caradoc. And we actually have a castle, a Caer, or the ruins of it. All the names up here are evocative. The Ridge of the Soldiers, the Throne of the Knights, outpost forts defending the mountain, and so on. Now this gets even more interesting because in the life of Cynhiltyd in section 22, discovered by my colleague, and in Nennius's history, in the Marbles of Britain, written around 822, we've got a story of a ship coming in from the sea, and it bears the body of an embalmed or mummified man. It says, oh, it arrives at the mouth of the Owenny River. Well, this is the Owenny River. It runs up in this area to the mountain. It's in the area of Gwir. Well, this is Gwir, Ogre, right? It mentions Lwyngarth and Lyngarth. It means smooth ridges, and there are great giant sand dunes at the estuary. Smooth ridges. It says, oh, Cynhiltyd is sitting at a cave mouth. He comes to the boat. Two eminent people are with this corpse. They deliver the corpse, telling him the name of the person who is dead and wrapped up. They take him into the cave, and they bury him in a cave. Go to the Coed y Mooster Woods. There is a cave in a cliff. Inside the cave, lying east to west Christian fashion, is a grave cut out of the solid granite, and it is granite. And it's not done for a peasant. But 11 feet long, 4 feet wide, and about 4 feet deep. Perfectly rectangular grave for a king. Later, in the Nennius version, he's taken out and taken to a church for burial. Everything is pointing here, to this area. So the Uther Pendragon in the giant circle, because in the giant circle we find a grave mound. Uther Pendragon is in the giant circle at Caer Caradoc. Who's the Uther Pendragon? Can't be Meurig, can't be Tudrig, must be Arthur. Cynhiltyd is the undertaker, does the burying. Cynhiltyd is a first cousin of King Arthur, King Arthur II. Add to this another story. We have a story of visitors coming from Brittany to visit the Cave of Arthur, the Grave of Arthur. They land on the coast, which is a coast of cliffs. Well, from Cardiff to the Iwenny is 35 miles of cliffs, steep ones. And they say how there's a little inlet, a little dell, a little dingle, a valley, a tiny valley, very green, beautiful, little stream running down it. They come ashore there, and on the one cliff on the one side is an ancient church, and the other is a fortress. On the one side we have Caen Eglwys, ancient church, and the other side we have the relics and ruins of a major fortress. Caen Eglwys is known to be the grave of King Ceri Longsword, who succeeded Caradoc I to fight the Romans around the year 51 to 80 AD. These people land at this place, they come inland, they go along a long wooded valley, which is still there between Llantrisant and Llanharan. They come to a long mountain. This is a long sausage-shaped mountain. There is a little valley let into the mountain. There is a little valley let into the mountain. A stream runs down it. And it's so steep they have to get off their horses and lead them up the slope to get to the top, to the Grave of Arthur. And you'll still see people doing that today when they ride their horses around this mountain. And they are smack on target. They say there's a Celtic hermitage there. When the excavation of St. Peter's Church was carried out in 1990, we found at least six successive buildings going back from 1300 to about 160 AD. And one of the buildings built around the 6th century was a circular beehive Celtic hermitage. Now, the Perleveau story from Brittany looks to be exactly right. Certainly all the absolute detail of the story in the life of Cynultyd and in the Nennius history, the Marvels of Britain, is absolutely spot on. Every name is correct, every detail is correct. So, who is the youth of Pendragon in the circle at Caercaradoc? Because the grave mound is still there.
One of the questions we've been asked more than any, particularly me, is why was Arthur II buried privately in a cave first and then taken to Cour Emrys? The reason is simple. First of all, he was buried privately because his enemies must be kept oblivious of his death. Secondly, when he was alive, he tried to marry 3 times. The first queen gave him 2 sons, Nwy and Laci. Unfortunately, they were killed in the Vandal wars around 548. So he marries yet again, he tries to marry again. His second queen runs off with the rebellious Modred to Perthshire in Scotland. So it became farcical. Rather like Henry VIII, he had to keep trying to marry to get heirs to the throne. So he married yet again. This time his eldest son was Morgan, who was only about 11 or 12 years old when this King Arthur II died. So he had to be buried privately in the cave until Morgan was old enough to succeed him in the throne. And when he was old enough, he was taken from the cave and reburied at Cour Emrys, which we will now go to see, and it will be most revealing.
Tony, here is the Atlantic Ocean and the river that leads up to Caercaradoc. Could you tell us the significance of this place?